What if you're not lazy, but just too comfortable? And what if that comfort is quietly destroying your life? Because think about it. You don't struggle to scroll for hours. You don't struggle to watch another video. You don't struggle to delay the things that matter. So it's not that you can't act. It's that you won't when it feels uncomfortable. And that's where it hits you. Maybe this isn't about laziness at all. Maybe it's about what you've gotten used to. Because comfort is addictive. It doesn't scream. It doesn't force you. It just keeps you still. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow. You tell yourself you just need the right moment. But the truth? The moment isn't missing. The discomfort is. And without discomfort, nothing changes. Now be honest for a second. Does this feel familiar? Waking up with plans, ending the day with excuses, saying, "This time will be different," and somehow repeating the same pattern. It's frustrating, because you know you're capable of more, you can feel it. That version of you, the focused one, the disciplined one, it's not imaginary, it's just buried. Buried under habits that feel easier, and that's where the real problem starts. Not in your ability, but in your environment. Because everything around you is designed to keep you comfortable. Your phone, your routine, your habits, all optimized for ease, for distraction, for escape. And slowly, you adapt to that. You get used to easy, used to instant rewards, used to avoiding anything that feels hard. And over time, hard starts to feel impossible. But here's where it gets real. You weren't born like this. You trained yourself into it, which means you can train yourself out. But that idea? It's uncomfortable, because it removes the excuse. It means you're not stuck, you're just choosing what's easy. And that's a hard pill to swallow. Now here's something most people won't admit. Comfort feels safe, but it's actually a trap, because it keeps you exactly where you are. No risk, but no growth. No failure, but no progress. It's like being paused in your own life, watching time move while you stay the same. And the scariest part? You don't even notice it happening. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and suddenly you look back and wonder, what did I actually do? So why does this keep happening? Why do you keep choosing comfort even when you know it's costing you? Here's the truth. Your brain is designed to protect you, not grow you. It wants safety, certainty, familiarity. So every time you think about doing something hard, it sends a signal. Stay where you are. Do something easier. Try later. And it feels logical, reasonable, even smart. But it's not. It's just familiar. And familiar feels safe. Now here's where things start to shift. Because once you see this pattern, you can't unsee it. You start noticing it everywhere. That moment when you pick up your phone instead of starting. That hesitation before doing something important. That little voice saying, "Not now." And for the first time, you realize something. You're not being controlled by your circumstances. You're being controlled by your comfort. And that changes everything. Because now the problem is clear. It's not time. It's not opportunity. It's not even motivation. It's comfort. And once you see that, you start questioning everything. Why am I doing this? Is this helping me, or just keeping me comfortable? And that awareness? That's the beginning. Because most people never get here. They stay stuck, thinking they're lazy, thinking something's wrong with them. But you're starting to see the truth. And the truth is, You don't need more motivation. You need less comfort. But here's the part nobody tells you. Breaking comfort isn't easy. It feels unnatural. It feels forced. Because you're going against everything your brain wants. And at first, you'll resist it. You'll doubt it. You'll try to go back. Because comfort will pull you, again and again. And that's where most people quit. Not because they can't change, but because they won't tolerate discomfort long enough. So let me ask you something. Which one are you right now? Comfortable or growing? Take a second, because your answer explains your entire life right now. And this is where your story actually begins. Not when things are perfect, not when you feel ready, but right here. And this is where most people think they need something big. A new plan, a fresh start, a sudden burst of motivation. But that's not what changes you. In fact, that's part of the trap. Because chasing motivation is just another form of comfort. It feels productive. It feels like progress. But nothing actually moves. And that's when it hits you. You don't need a new plan. You need a new relationship with discomfort. Because right now, discomfort feels like a stop sign, something to avoid, something to delay, something to escape. But what if it's not a stop sign? What if it's a signal? A signal that you're finally doing something that matters. Think about it. Every time you try to grow, it feels uncomfortable. Starting something new, sticking to a routine, saying no to distractions. It all feels wrong at first. But not because it's wrong, because it's unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feels dangerous to your brain. So it pushes back, hard. Now here's where it gets real. Most people interpret that resistance as a sign to stop. But the truth? It's a sign you're finally moving forward. That tension you feel, that hesitation, that inner battle, that's the process. That's growth happening in real time. And if you can sit with it, even for a moment, you start to build something powerful. Control. Not over your life, but over your reactions. Because here's the shift. You stop asking, do I feel like doing this? And you start asking, does this move me forward? Simple, but everything changes. Because feelings become irrelevant, and actions become intentional. Now let's be honest. That sounds good. But living it? That's different. Because your brain will fight you. It will give you reasons. Smart ones. Convincing ones. You're tired. You can start later. This isn't urgent. And the scary part? It sounds like you. Like your own thoughts. But it's not. It's your comfort speaking. Trying to pull you back. Now here's a question most people avoid. What if the life you want requires a version of you that you've been avoiding becoming? Let that sit for a second. Because that's where the resistance comes from. Not the task. The identity. Doing hard things isn't just about effort. It's about becoming someone different. Someone who shows up. Someone who doesn't negotiate with excuses. Someone who chooses growth, even when it feels uncomfortable. And that version of you? It's unfamiliar. Which means it feels uncomfortable. So you resist it. You delay it. You avoid it. Not because you're lazy, but because it's new. Now this next part changes everything. You don't build discipline by forcing yourself. You build it by proving something to yourself. Small actions. Repeated. Consistently. Not perfectly. Just consistently. Because every time you do something you didn't feel like doing, you send a signal. I can trust myself. And trust? That's what you've been missing. Not motivation. Not clarity. Trust. Because right now, there's a gap between what you say you'll do and what you actually do. And that gap? It destroys confidence. Quietly, over time. But every small action closes it, little by little. Now here's where most people mess up. They try to change everything at once. Wake up early, work out, be productive all day. And for a moment, it works. Until it doesn't. Because it's overwhelming. And overwhelming leads back to comfort. So instead, you do less, but you do it fully. One action, one promise, kept daily. That's it. Sounds too simple, right? That's why it works. Because simplicity removes resistance, and consistency builds identity. Now think about this. What's one thing you keep avoiding? Not 10 things, just one. That task, that habit, that decision. Yeah, that one. Why? Why do you keep avoiding it? Don't answer fast. Because the answer isn't, I'm lazy. It's deeper. Is it fear? Of failing? Of not being good enough? Or maybe, of actually succeeding? And what that would require from you? Most people won't admit this part, but sometimes, staying comfortable feels easier than finding out what you're truly capable of. Because if you try and fail, it hurts. But if you never try, you can always tell yourself, I could have done it. Safe, comfortable, stuck. So here's the shift. You stop protecting your ego and start building your life. And that means taking action before you feel ready, before it feels comfortable, before you're sure. Because certainty doesn't come first. Action does. And with every action, something changes. Not your situation, you. And once you change, everything else follows. But here's where it gets real. You won't feel ready. You won't feel confident. You won't feel motivated. At least not at the start. And that's okay. Because this isn't about feeling different. It's about acting different. And that's where your power is. Not in your thoughts, but in your choices. So let me ask you something. If you stopped waiting to feel ready, what would you do today? Don't overthink it. Because your first answer is probably the right one. And that's your next step. Not a big one, just the next one. Because that's how you break comfort. Not all at once, but piece by piece. And what comes next is where everything starts to shift inside you. And this is where things start to get deeper. Because breaking comfort isn't just about action, it's about identity, who you believe you are. Because right now, whether you realize it or not, you're operating from a story, a quiet one, running in the background. I'm not consistent. I struggle with discipline. I always start, but don't finish. And the more you repeat those patterns, the more that story feels true. Until one day, you stop questioning it. You accept it. And once that happens, every action starts to match that identity. Not because you have to, but because it feels normal. Now here's the problem. You can't outperform your identity for long. You can push for a few days, maybe even a few weeks. But eventually, you fall back. Not because you're weak, but because your actions always return to what feels like you. So if you want to change your life, you don't start with goals. You start with identity. But here's the twist. You don't change identity by thinking differently. You change it by acting differently. Consistently. Even when it feels fake. Even when it feels forced. Because at first, it will. Acting like someone you're not used to being always feels uncomfortable. But that's the point. That discomfort? That's the signal. You're becoming someone new. Now think about this. What would a disciplined version of you do right now? Not later, not tomorrow, right now. Would they scroll or start? Would they delay or decide? Would they avoid or act? And here's the key. You don't need to feel like that person. You just need to act like them. Once, then again, then again. Because every action is a vote for the person you're becoming. And over time, those votes stack until your identity shifts. Not suddenly, but gradually, quietly, powerfully. Now let me ask you something. If someone followed you for a week, just watching your actions, what kind of person would they say you are? Disciplined, focused, or comfortable? Take a second, because this isn't about judgment, it's about clarity. Because once you see the gap, you can close it. Now here's where most people go wrong. They wait to feel different before acting different. But it works the opposite way. You act different, and then you feel different. You become confident after you take action. You become disciplined after you show up consistently, not before. And this is where it gets real. Because now you can't hide behind, "I don't feel like it." That excuse disappears. Because you understand something deeper. Feelings are temporary. Identity is built. And actions decide both. Now here's a quiet truth most people avoid. You don't actually need more time. You need fewer distractions. Because think about it. The time is there. It's just being spent on things that don't move you forward. And that's not random. That's comfort, pulling you back into what's easy. So the real question isn't, how do I find time? It's, what am I willing to remove? Because every time you say yes to comfort, you're saying no to your future. And that adds up, over days, over months, over years. Until one day, you realize you didn't run out of time. You gave it away. But here's the good news. You can take it back. Not all at once, but one decision at a time. One distraction removed. One action taken. One promise kept. And slowly, things start to shift. You feel more in control. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And that's the difference. Now here's where it gets interesting. The more you act like that disciplined version of yourself, the less resistance you feel. Because it stops being a fight. It starts being normal. And that's when you realize something powerful. You're not forcing change anymore. You are the change. But let's be real for a second. This isn't perfect. You will slip. You will have days where you fall back into comfort, where you choose easy, where you avoid again. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're still learning. The difference now is, you notice it, faster, and you come back, quicker. And that's what matters. Not perfection, direction. Because as long as you keep moving forward, you're winning. Even if it's slow, even if it's messy, even if it's uncomfortable. Especially if it's uncomfortable. Because that's where growth lives. Not in comfort, not in ease, in discomfort, in resistance, in doing things you don't feel like doing. And that's where your new identity is built. But there's one final piece. The thing that decides whether this change lasts or fades like everything else you've tried. And once you understand it, you don't just improve, you transform. And this is the part that decides everything. Not your goals, not your motivation, not even your discipline, your standard. Because at the end of the day, you don't rise to what you want, you fall to what you accept. So if you accept distraction, you'll live distracted. If you accept inconsistency, you'll stay inconsistent. If you accept comfort, you'll stay exactly where you are. And that's the truth most people avoid. They want a different life, but they keep tolerating the same habits. Now here's where it shifts. Raising your standard isn't dramatic. It's not loud. It's a quiet decision. A line you draw in your mind. I don't do this anymore. That's it. No big announcement, no perfect plan, just a decision. And then, you act like it's true, even when it's hard, even when it feels unnatural. Because at first, it will. Now let me ask you something. What are you tolerating right now? that you know is holding you back. That habit you keep excusing. That distraction you keep justifying. That delay you keep repeating. Yeah, that one. You already know it. And this is your moment. Because you don't need to fix everything. You need to stop tolerating one thing. Just one. Because that one shift creates momentum. It sends a message to yourself. I'm not that person anymore. And the moment you believe that, your actions start to align. Not perfectly, but consistently. Now here's something most people misunderstand. Discipline isn't punishment. It's self-respect. It's the decision to show up for your future, even when your present self resists. It's choosing growth over comfort, again and again. And yeah, it's uncomfortable, at first. But over time, it becomes normal. Because your standard has changed. And once your standard changes, your life follows. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because now, you're not negotiating with your old habits. You're replacing them, one decision at a time. Let's be honest for a second. You already know what you need to do. You've known for a while. This isn't new information. It's a reminder. Because knowing isn't your problem. Action is. Consistency is. That's where everything breaks down. And that's where everything changes. Not in one big moment, but in small ones, repeated daily. Now imagine this version of you. The one who doesn't wait to feel ready. The one who doesn't need motivation. The one who does what needs to be done without overthinking it. That version of you? They're not special. They just stop negotiating with comfort. That's it. And you can do the same, starting now, not later. Now. One decision. That's all it takes. One action that moves you forward. One moment where you choose growth over ease. And then you do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, until it becomes who you are. So here's the truth. You were never lazy. You were just too comfortable. And now, you know. So the question isn't, can you change? It's, will you? Because from this point on, every choice is yours. You can go back to what's easy, what's familiar, what's comfortable. Or you can step into something different, something harder, something better, something real. And yeah, it won't feel good at first, but neither does staying stuck. So choose your discomfort, because one leads to growth and the other leads nowhere. If this hits something in you, don't ignore it. That's awareness. And awareness is where everything starts. Most people will feel this and go right back to their habits. But you don't have to. You can do something different, right now. Don't overthink it, just act. And if this made you see things differently, don't just scroll. Subscribe, and start becoming the version of you that comfort has been hiding.